Well, the biographer and historian Justin Whittle is sitting alongside us, looking at this historic occasion for somebody who's not a head of state, and really everything has been rolled out for Aung San Suu Kyi, who has a very sort of special place, doesn't she, in recent British history, and in terms of the sort of political potency of her message.
Yes, I mean, that's absolutely right. As I was saying earlier, it's a combination of the Nobel Prize, which is very esteemed. It's media friendliness, if you like. It's the connections with this country. It's mainly, though, because of an incredibly moving story, the long years of house arrest, the determination and the courage, and she's very articulate. She's a great spokesperson for human rights.
When this is organised by the Foreign Office, I mean, is it unusual that somebody like her should be asked to address this? Because there's only one other woman who's done it, and that is the Queen. And normally it is the head of state, isn't it?
Well, it is rather strange. I mean, the whole thing's been, it's not been called a state visit, but to all intents and purposes, that's exactly what it is. I was extremely pleased to learn that Thein Sein, the president, has been invited later in the year, and that'll sort of redress the balance to a certain extent.
And how will all that play back in Burma, do you think?
Well, I think there are some tensions. I mean, Thein Sein's really the man who started the reform process. He took a huge risk. The situation was, of course, that by co-opting Aung San Suu Kyi into the reform process, it was much easier for him. But he was the man of courage, really. I think that his entourage, certainly, he's a very humble man, in fact, and a straight man. His entourage feels that, to a certain extent, he's been upstaged by Aung San Suu Kyi, and I think it's an invitation to him to come to this country later on on an official visit is important, and hopefully it'll get him and Suu Kyi back on the same hymn sheet.
Because she was very quick to urge her supporters to be magnanimous in victory after the election, which of course was a landslide in terms of that. So, do you imagine that she is aware of how this visit will be viewed?
I think she's probably been made aware in the last one. I mean, I thought that again when she gave her Oslo speech accepting the Nobel Prize, she was her usual beautifully eloquent self on human rights. I thought she could have said a word about Thein Sein and how much he's risked. But I think it's changing now. She's on a huge learning curve, and she's learning very, very quickly and very well.
When it comes to speaking up or restoring relations with Burma, how concerned is she about this process and perhaps certain parts of the world moving more quickly, too quickly, in terms of allowing Burma back into the fold?
Well, she's been giving expressions of caution, etc. I take a slightly different view, which is by embracing the change, by encouraging the Burmese government as much as possible, that'll actually hasten change and make it more real. And we're getting to the point where day by day, week by week, month by month, it becomes less and less reversible.
And this, we saw her in Oxford over the past couple of days. I mean, this will be an emotional trip for her to make after all these years.
It's both a very public trip and a very private trip. I mean, she's got one of her sons in Oxford. She's got a lot of old friends, many of them dating back to when she was a student at Oxford, and then Michael Arrett's wife, an Oxford housewife, if you like, and she's got. She's very close to many of her husband's relations who are still alive. So all that's a very, very private thing. At the same time, she's being the sort of stalwart public figure that she's so good at being.
You are, I think, meeting her later on, aren't you, at the Foreign Office? She is a picture of sort of tranquility and calmness. I mean, are there situations which do fluster her?
Well, I mean, very, very inevitably there are whispers that she can be a little cross sometimes. She's a human being, but she has this sang-froid. I mean, she will never show it. And, she's a patrician person. I mean, she's as close to royalty as they get. She's the daughter of the founder of Burmese independence, and she comes with that whole motherload, if I can use that word, of position, dignity, etc.
The phrase "Daw Su," which is used by everyone,
yes.
I mean, that is just is that just an expression which is used for Burmese women of a certain age?
Daw is an honorific used of older Burmese women, respected Burmese women. It's not automatic, but nor is it conferred in an official way. People become Daw by, or U is an element, by a process of osmosis.
All right, I think people are making their way now to the podium. Let's just see if we get a closer shot. Well, a round of applause. Everyone has gone quiet, but we are still on this much wider camera position here, showing how many people can fit into Westminster Hall. Politicians assembled. The rest of the audience there seems to have gone quiet, but David Cameron's still making some point to Ed Miliband. I'm not sure if it's discussing Take That or Jimmy Carr or any of the recent tax avoidance discussions, which of course both men have taken different positions on. But as we were saying, Aung San Suu Kyi, the Burmese pro-democracy leader who spent so many years under house arrest, now due to address both houses of Parliament here in this historic Westminster Hall, a scene, of course, of so much history over the past 500-600 years. And now the only woman to address both houses of Parliament, apart from the Queen. Justin Wintle here with us, just listening to this music. But Justin, where she stands now constitutionally in Burma means that she can be an MP, but constitutionally, could she change the wording of that country's law at the moment to actually stand herself for president?
Well, she can't do anything personally or individually. But a change in the constitution is a major objective. And indeed, one of the ministers said recently that that the constitution is not written stone for ever and a day, and there will be constitutional change.
Well, a standing ovation for Aung San Suu Kyi as she walks in now and takes a seat alongside Speaker John Berkeley, who I think would probably say a few words. The whole of Westminster Hall as it's on its feet. Shall we move there alongside Gordon Brown? No Tony Blair at the moment. Previous political leaders who've addressed Westminster Hall, the Dalai, well, not the Dalai Lama, but President Reagan, Bush, Sarkozy of France, but now John Bercow, introducing Aung San Suu Kyi.
This hall has hosted many events over the past 900 years. In recent times, only a few international figures, Charles de Gaulle, Nelson Mandela, Pope Benedict XVI, and Barack Obama, have spoken here. Today, Aung San Suu Kyi will become the first figure other than a head of state, the first woman from abroad, and the first citizen of Asia to do so. This is not a break from precedent without a purpose. The courage of our guest is legendary. She has withstood the unimaginable suffering of separation from her family and her people with a dignity, fortitude, and resolve which most of us can barely conceive. Her connections with the United Kingdom, reinforced in Oxford yesterday, are intimate. She has been the symbol of resistance to a regime which, even in an imperfect world, has been exceptional in its barbarity. As the United Nations has documented, and from 3 trips to Burma's borders, I can myself attest, this is a cabal guilty of rape as a weapon of war, extrajudicial killings, compulsory relocation, forced labour, deployment of child soldiers, use of human minesweepers, incarceration of opponents in unspeakable conditions, destruction of villages, obstruction of aid, and excruciating torture. Burma has become a beautiful but benighted land where fear runs through society like blood flowing through veins. One woman has now defied a dictatorship of such depravity for 2 decades. That is why Aung San Suu Kyi, a